and Jazzmyn Banks talking about the show Push Girls, which I have to say I'm really disappointed because the season finale is next week, and I'm really into the show now, and I don't want it to go away for a year. So this is what you have to do, because, I don't know, it's really selfish of me. Write into the Sundance Channel and beg them, please, we want season 2. I mean, you could do this for yourself, but I'm really asking you to do this for me, because this is a groundbreaking show. It's about 4 women in wheelchairs, all the nonsense that they have to deal with where the disability is concerned. And I'm not talking just physical barriers. I'm talking about the barriers that are created by the ignorance that surrounds you from people. Sometimes they're well-meaning, sometimes they're not. These women are good-looking, they're stylish, they're interesting, they're funny, they have just regular lives, and this is very important for people to see because it breaks a lot of negative stereotypes. So this show has got to have a season 2, and I really, really want everyone to just send them a quick email. Just let them know. Post it on the Facebook wall, whatever floats your boat in the way of contacting them. Just do it. It's an important show for not only the disabled community, but for the able-bodied community to learn what disability is really all about. Because the truth of the matter is, disability is not, it's not selective. It can hit anybody at any time. And so, you know, if you're investing in people being more open-minded about what the needs and wants of a disabled person are, and that we all just want to be normal, then we're setting up a better world for everybody to be in. So, let's talk about this week's episode. It's a really good episode. Kind of great and difficult at the same time for me personally to watch it because I am disabled. I've been disabled in a wheelchair since I was 10 years old. So, some of it is a bit hard to watch and sort of then relive my own experience, but at the same time, if I'm feeling that way, then I'm thinking someone who's able-bodied has got to get something. It's really poking at your emotions when you watch this show and you see the loss that someone has suffered. In this week's episode, one of the women, Mia, she enters a swimming competition. She has not done this for 17 years. This was one of her goals in life, and then bam, overnight an aneurysm hits her and she's paralyzed and can't compete anymore. So she's been practicing for a month and she enters an able-bodied competition, which I think is awesome, and I've done that too. I was in an able-bodied pageant and I was the only one in the wheelchair, and I think that that's great. You should do it. I know I was on Howard Stern, and one of the debates they brought up was that fair to be in an able-bodied competition? Maybe the judges were going to score you higher because they felt sorry for you, or they were judging you on the wrong thing. They were admiring your strength and your courage to participate instead of judging, well, were you a good speaker, were you beautiful, were you this, whatever it was. And I think it's a fair argument, but it's not my responsibility how someone is going to judge me. If they're not going to do their job right and judge me on the things they're supposed to, I can't help that. But there's no reason that someone with a disability can't participate in an able-bodied competition if there's nothing against it. I mean, there have been disabled gymnasts that participated in able-bodied competitions. As long as you can do what you're supposed to do, that's all that matters. So Mia was able to swim back and forth. Now, unfortunately, because it's been 17 years and because she's only been practicing for a month, was she on the same level as these other swimmers? No. But that was okay. Did she win? No. I think that for the TV show itself, this was an important thing, because when I watch these shows, and because I'm doing these reviews, first of all, I don't watch anything as a normal audience member only. Yes, there's a part of me that sits and enjoys things and just accepts it for what it is, but then there's another part of me, because I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer, director, editor, so I watch it from all of those perspectives. And when it comes to the in thing of reality TV, and then you have a docuseries, there's a part of my head that wonders, well, are they manufacturing stuff here? And very often in reality TV shows, if someone enters a competition, they magically win. Well, part of that is, in some cases, there's the pressure of a television crew is there, and the judges maybe vote a certain way because they want to look good. Some of it, in some cases, is because a producer arranged the whole thing. Sometimes things are manufactured, and it's very frustrating as an audience member to not just see what naturally unfolds. So this moment sort of restores my faith in the show that they're not just going to win because they were there and it's to prove a point that disabled people can do anything and win. You're not always going to win, you're going to lose too. I think it was important because, she wasn't, if she was walking and she suddenly, after 17 years of being out of the game, got back into it and only had a month of practice, she probably still wouldn't have won. So it wasn't necessarily about her disability. It was more about, she just didn't have enough practice time. And that's okay. You got to start somewhere. And I think this was a really, I hate to use the word inspiring because disabled people hate the word inspiring. But it was inspiring in that, she had the guts to get back into it, and she's just going to keep going for it. It was painful. You saw her having a little bit of a freak out because it just brought back the memories of, geez, she went to compete in the swimming match, and the night before, suddenly she was paralyzed. So the two things are really closely associated for her. But she's meeting her fear and saying, you know what, I want to swim and I want to compete and I'm going to do it. Forget about the fact that I'm disabled. So this is really important. Tiffany, one of the other women, she gets ready and she participates in a 5K run as the only disabled person in it. And again, it wasn't about whether she was going to be the first one to get across the finish line. It was about, can I do it? And I did it, and I did it. This is a very important thing for people to realize, that just because you're in a wheelchair doesn't mean you have to be in only wheelchair stuff. You can participate in anything as long as you can, meet the requirements. Now, when I was 11 or 12, I was newly in the wheelchair, and my mother thought out of the box. And in town, there was this big dance night for kids in middle school, where they'd get together and they'd learn these different dance steps. It looked like line dancing almost. Nobody danced together. It was more just learn these steps and move around. And then afterwards you had cookies and soda, and it was a social event. It was fun. You got to get dressed up and mix and mingle and learn some dance moves. And when she signed me up for it, now remember, I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't participate in it. People lost their minds. They thought she was so cruel, especially knowing that I wanted to be a dancer. That career was cut short when I ended up in the wheelchair. I had been taking dance classes as a kid for years. It was just what I lived and breathed. And they thought it was beyond cruel to send me to this night to watch other people dance and not be able to participate. Well, see, my view was, wow, I got to watch and vicariously participate. Because when you're in a wheelchair, it's not always about the doing of things. Part of it is about watching and experiencing them in a different way. You have a great appreciation for living vicariously. It's a part of how you live now. There's your reality and there's your fantasy, and you have to have both worlds because it's a different way of experiencing things. I guess it's, a different version of virtual reality. It's the virtual reality that you have in your mind so that you can still experience things in a different way. I mean, why should you not experience them just because you can't in physical life? And I found that very healing. I looked at it in a different way, that I got to watch everyone learning these different dance moves. I got to get dressed up. I got to wear high heels and makeup, things that I wasn't ordinarily allowed to do at that age. And I got to socialize and make new friends. And hey, there were even guys that were sitting there talking to me and interested in me, and that was awesome. So for me, it was a win-win. It would have been worse If in my book, it would have been worse if I couldn't go. If my mother says, "Oh no, you shouldn't go because you're going to be upset watching them dance," that would have been worse. So I think it's really important, if a child ends up in a wheelchair, that they still need to experience real life. They need to mix and mingle in the regular world. The biggest mistake people make is to isolate people in wheelchairs or people with disabilities into just those circles, because they don't know what it is to just go for it and force yourself on the rest of the world and say to the rest of the world, "I'm here, you have to deal with me. You have to accept that I want to come to your establishment, or I want to join your group." I mean, there were barriers for women, for people who are black, for people who are Asian. There are of religious reasons. I mean, there's always been a barrier that's been in place for a certain group of people. And disabled people are no different when it comes to that. There have always been barriers. Often they're just a bunch of steps, but there have been a lot of barriers, and even the attitudes of able-bodied people and whether they think someone should come into their world. I remember being 15, and I went to a Hallmark store, and the crotchety old man who ran the store saw me trying to come in the door, and he yelled, "Nope, get out of this store. You're probably going to knock stuff over, and it'll be bad for business if people see you in here and they won't want to buy anything." Now, this was before the ADA laws. Otherwise, there would have been a nice lawsuit from most people in this situation. In my, I probably should have just gone in and bought a card there. I didn't want to deal with it, and I thought, okay, I'll just go to another store, and they'll make money from me, and this guy won't. Stuff like that still exists. To this day, there are places that I can go into, and they're not too happy that someone in a wheelchair is in there, and will outright say something about it being bad for business. I take a different approach now. I don't go suing anyone, but I do take the opportunity to try and educate them as to why they're wrong about that. I'm not bad for anyone's business just because I'm in a wheelchair. People don't think that way anymore, and that's why shows like this are really important, to just make people understand, no, we're just another part of the real world. And that's why it's very important for people to participate in the 5K run if they're in a wheelchair and nobody else is, to participate in a swimming competition or a beauty pageant, whatever it is. If you can participate in it, you should be able to do it. So now the other part of the show that I love, it's actually a commercial during the show, is Angela, who is a model, and she's now doing a Maybelline commercial. And of course, as I'm sitting there watching this beautiful model do this Maybelline commercial, she's in a wheelchair, and she just looks so perfect. Like, I want to see print ads and other commercials that are not affiliated with this show have her in it, and other women in wheelchairs. Just like you see those Dove body commercials where all the women who are not skinny are in them. Well, I want to see an ad that's just a normal old ad for just whatever, have a bunch of women, and hey, there's a chick in a wheelchair in it as well. And it's not singling her out, it's just she's one of the women in this. I think things like that are very important, because you normally don't see it unless it's for some disability equipment or for catheters or whatever. But it just seems like if you see a wheelchair, it has to do with disability somehow, or something medical. And I think, again, that's a stereotype that needs to be broken. And I think that Angela is possibly one of those people that's going to lead the way on that. The other thing that the show dealt with, which again, kind of near and dear to my heart, is Audi and her husband are talking about having children. And of course, naturally, as a disabled person, your fear is, how am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of this, living, human being that I got to keep alive and well and healthy? And I'm a mom. I have 2 boys, 18 and 25. And yeah, there's a challenge to it. Now, they were both surprises. This was not planned, and so I just had to deal with it. And in the show, Audi is worrying, well, is this the time? How am I going to take care of this child? Suddenly everything career-wise is coming together. Will I have, the time to deal with the child? All the questions that anybody is going to ask themselves. I guess the thing that kept coming to me as she was talking about, should she be having a child right now? I think part of it is, there's a lot career-wise going on. They suddenly have a TV show. I would be asking myself the same question. But at the same time, when a child comes along and you have to just deal with it, somehow it just works out. If you put your mind to it, just like, the disability hit you and somehow you just made things work out in your life, it's the same kind of thing. You're presented with a challenge and you deal with it. The bottom line is, do you want to have children or not? If you don't, then you shouldn't. But if you do, disability is not the biggest factor in the world. It's just about, again, being adaptive and creative and thinking out of the box. How am I picking up the kid? He's 2 years old. How am I going to prevent him from getting into this, that, and the other thing, or running into places that maybe I can't get to him? Well, I can tell you many stories of able-bodied parents that had a 2 or 3-year-old that ran into a place that they couldn't find them either. This is, again, a normal parenting thing, but you just have to think of, well, how will I deal with this if it happens, or that if it happens? I guess when you're disabled, the normal thing you do in life in general is play chess. You got to think ahead a few steps as to how you're going to negotiate different situations. Well, parenting will be no different than anything else that you do when it comes to thinking out how you're going to manage. And yes, will there be some curveballs that are thrown your way? Absolutely, it does happen. But that's why you always have to think in backup plans. Who do you have on speed dial, just in case? And every mom should have that situation where, who can I call just in case? So again, it really is a normal problem in a different way. It's the same thing everybody goes through, and you just have to figure out how you're going to make it happen, and you can. I have known way too many people who have children and they are in a wheelchair, meaning they, the parent. And I did it, and I was, I got divorced, and then I was a single parent. And being disabled and a single parent, that's a big challenge. But hey, they're alive, they're well, it all worked out, and you just deal with it somehow. And so I think that I would love to see Audi's journey as a parent. I really would. I mean, I really do hope that she goes down that road, and I think this is a time for her to just turn to different people in wheelchairs who have had children and how the heck did they do it. This is the time to hear the different war stories and prepare yourself for it, but don't let it hold you back from having a child, because I'll tell you, it's the best thing in the world is to have a child. And believe me, both of mine came along when it was inconvenient career-wise, but you know what, you work it out. And I think in her case, actually it's a career enhancement, because for all of us audience members, we're going to be fascinated to watch, how is she going to do this? And she will, she just will, because she's a tough number. And if you have that kind of I'm going to do this personality, you're winning already. So I'm really curious to see what season 2, I'm thinking positively here, is going to bring for us when it comes to the show Push Girls. Everyone write in to the Sundance Channel, please. I want to continue to review this show. I want to watch it. So my question of the moment for you is, why do you think the show is important, and why should there be a season 2? I'd love for you to put your comments right down there and let me know. Thank you very much.